Well, it certainly has been a pretty extreme September, really, hasn't it? Weather-wise, we have, of course, seen the exceptional warmth during the first 10 days or so of September, 10 to 15 days. And then, of course, we started to switch things around. The tropics delivered that heat wave, in my opinion, and now they have well and truly taken the heat wave away. Wind and rain and a significant drop in temperature has been the response, and a lot of it is to do with the type of track that we see, the distribution of that energy from the tropics moving up into the temperate regions really dictates the type of weather pattern that we see here in the UK and Western Europe. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue in the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you are a lover of meteorology, weather, not just being told whether it's going to be sunny, rainy, cold, wet. It is a lot more than that, and of course, I do strive to show you the big, broad picture here on markvoganweather.com. So, of course, we had the northward progress of Franklin back at the start of September. Then we've seen an unprecedented 8 straight days of 30 Celsius or higher. Even up here in the north of Scotland, we've seen 3 straight days above 25 Celsius, which is pretty remarkable for this late in the year to see a high of 27, 28 Celsius. Remarkable stuff. The coverage of that warmth really was amazing to see. Then, of course, we had more tropical systems. It has been a very active Atlantic so far in the last week to 10 days, even a couple of weeks now. We've seen the tropics becoming the primary driver in our weather, dictating, and of course, even as we move towards the late autumn and into the winter season, we're going to show you in a lot more detail in that next update, that next winter update. I'm going to be showing you the importance of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. The tropics, folks, holds the key, holds the candle to the type of weather pattern that really does drive the global atmosphere. Really, the tropics, it is amazing actually when you look at this. And the combination of that now positive Indian Ocean dipole and that El Nino that is now coupled between ocean and atmosphere. The Australians have now declared El Nino. Believe it or not, they've only declared it in the last few days because we didn't see a particularly noteworthy coupling between ocean and atmosphere, and also the coupling of the Indian Ocean dipole as well. That cool over and near Australia and Indonesia promotes drought conditions and higher than average temperatures in Australia, Indonesia. But then, of course, over in the western portion of the Indian Ocean, we've got the collection of warmest waters. So we've got those strong easterlies now developed. That is that coupling now. We're seeing the atmospheric response from ocean into the atmosphere. Strong easterlies mean that we're pushing that warm water into the western portion of the equatorial Indian Ocean. We enhance rainfall and flooding potential over countries such as Somalia and Ethiopia and adjacent countries of East Africa in response to that. And it's that response that then drives the global circulation as well. So, of course, we've had the remnants of Lee. We did see the pressure drop to 973 millibars. We've, of course, seen one system hand off to Lee, kind of moved off the playing field. In came Lee. And then, of course, we did see the response to, extra tropical cyclones moving into our neck of the woods. Of course, colder than average waters we've got warmer than average waters, but colder temperatures to support tropical systems. And of course, we've already explained the fact that, once tropical systems leave the 26, 27 Celsius waters, the dynamics change. The system becomes cold core as opposed to warm core. It develops frontal systems. And of course, we've seen Lee moving up through the Western Isles at 973 millibar area of low pressure. Strongest winds transferring from Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Wales, then up through Scotland. We had a very gusty late part of the day yesterday here in the north of Scotland. And then, of course, we are seeing colder air digging in response to that here. So while the temperatures were at 17 Celsius at 11 p.m. back on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday night, we're seeing temperatures as high as 17 at Glasgow Airport. and we had 7 Celsius at Aviemore. So it was the warmth that was wrapped in, tied into that circulation of Lee that then moved across Ireland, Northern Ireland, bringing a very, very sultry night indeed. But we had wind and rain in response to that as well, of course. Lee is now slowly exiting the playing field. Now, high pressure near the continent is slowing down the progress of this system. But you can see here a very interesting tweet here by Ryan Murray, based in Atlanta, Georgia. I believe he's still in Atlanta, showing the wake, the cooling effect of these systems as they move across the ocean surface. So this was Lee, there's Margot. I can't remember exactly what system this was here to the north of the Azores here, but a tremendous amount of upwelling of the sea surface here just within the Gulf of Maine, so just south of Nova Scotia. We've removed temperatures significantly well above average to 5-6 Celsius below average. So it just shows you the response that you see from these tropical systems as they ingest all that energy up into the circulation. Of course, we've seen a heck of a lot of rainfall across the UK and Ireland in the last few days here. Tropical systems hold the greatest amount of water vapor of any system on the planet. And of course, when you're underneath that, you certainly know all about it, especially when the system starts to slow down. But it's amazing the removal of some of this heat content out of the ocean surface to the east of New England here in response to these tropical entities here. So we'll play it up through very, very heavy rainfall. Of course, this was a bit of a warm front. I don't know if it was an official warm front or an included front. But basically, once this main band of rain transferred initially from North Wales, the north of England, North Midlands, very heavy persistent rain during the day, and then it started to lift northwards here as that system that was sub 980 millibars the day before moved out of the way. Then this allowed the main band of heavy precipitation to move northwards, and then we've seen that warm, juicy tropical air move in to the north here. We never quite reached that warmth up here across the Highlands, the North Highlands. The temperatures did stay relatively cool compared to what was seen further south. And like I said before, the Australians, the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, has officially declared both El Nino and the positive Indian Ocean dipole. We'll look at that in great detail in the upcoming weeks to come with regards to the winter forecast. We'll also look at the global spike in temperature in recent times. We'll look at that in the Global Weather and Climate Report this upcoming Sunday here. So a little bit more detail with regards to that warmth associated with Lee moving north here. Like I said, never quite reached the northern half of the British Isles, but we now have, as Lee kind of exits the playing field, we are now starting to ingest colder air on the backside of that circulation, and we could see some fairly cold temperatures to come. This was a video that I recorded at the depot that I work out of in Glasgow. Of course, as you know, I do a nightly trunk between Inverness, Glasgow, and back up to Inverness. But this was the scene captured from inside the cab. I have to emphasise that I did not stand out in this, but some very, very heavy rainfall. Look at the gusty winds getting whipped across, but the temperature was 17 Celsius at the time of recording. So notably nasty conditions, and of course amazing to think that this was the very circulation that exited Africa, crossed the tropical Atlantic, became a Category 5 hurricane, and then moved up through Canada, eastern New England, and then of course it whipped across, it got picked up by the jet stream, and within a 36-hour period it was on our shores here. Heavy precipitation of snow, by the way, in northern portions of Scandinavia. So winter is now starting to kick in across the far north of Europe here. So this is the scene from Lapland. We had some 20 centimeters of snow, by the way, which is actually record levels of snowfall even up across the far north of Scandinavia for September, which is quite interesting here. So lots of interesting things certainly going on at the moment here. And finally, we'll look at the rainfall totals in the last 36 hours. Possibly, I don't know if it's directly linked to the remnants of Hurricane Lee, or whether it's part of the previous system and Lee combined. But of course, we had the frontal system that slowed down to a crawl, and we were actually hooking up that cold front between Margot down near the Azores and Lee's centre over the Outer Hebrides. There was a direct connection between the tropics and or subtropics and Lee. And of course, with a very slow moving eastward progressing cold front, you get heavy, persistent rain, helped by the fact that you've got, of course, the orographic influence, as well as that moisture gets transferred up hillsides. It increases the level of rainfall. And Honester Pass in Cumbria took the prize, 165 millimetres of rain within a day and a half. Very significant. Even 134 at Capel Curig, 131 at Cumbria. Several sites, of course, in Cumbria, no surprise there, and also Wales. So Wales and northwest England saw some very significant amounts of rainfall, and the winds were pretty significant as well here. Official gusts, the Bulick na Ba in the West Highlands here, 82 miles per hour, Capel Curig 70 miles an hour, Tiree 62, Pembury Sands 61. So very significant impacts indeed. And of course, as I've emphasized time and time again, the tropics become a primary driver, especially when the Atlantic is alive and kicking, and you've got recurving tropical systems here. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is some very interesting things going on with regards to the tropics. So if we go right back to the here and now, this is Nigel, and it looks as if Nigel's going to do a bit of a dance with this system just to the northwest of Nigel. Watch this space as we play through the loop. Notice here, Nigel, a fairly compact, a fairly significant little feature here just to the southeast of another low, but that other low is the more dominant player. Look at how it gets picked up and it kind of whipped around, so to speak, the circulation. So Nigel never quite makes it to the UK, gets drawn into this main low and then circulates. But then, of course, the two combine and become a very deep 955 millibar area of low pressure here, which is quite significant. But I want to also play back this loop here. Interesting stuff. We've got a tropical or subtropical system that's moving into the Carolinas, expected to be by the upcoming weekend. Notice this little feature just on the northern flank, how it splits away from that low, then shifts out into the Atlantic. It's picked up by the jet stream. Watch this space. So it goes north of the high between Bermuda and the Azores. There's that massive circulation to the west, well out to the west of the UK, but it is going to bring wind and rain this upcoming weekend to the British Isles. There's no getting away from that. Thankfully, the centre never gets close to the British Isles, but watch this little feature developing, scoots across the Atlantic, and then actually becomes quite a deep feature by the time we reach next Wednesday here. A long way off, but wouldn't it be interesting to see that? And look at this here, there's another system in the tropics. So I said to you a day or two ago how the Manjulian Oscillation was moving into the central portion of the Pacific, and that may start to shut the Atlantic down. There is no real evidence of that just yet. Certainly into the early portion of October, it looks as if we're going to see the continuation of this. Looking at the 500 millibar heights, by the way, just before we go, this is the GFS ensemble, and you can see here trough over the eastern United States. There's that elongated trough extending from just south of Greenland all the way across the UK. So watch this space now as we move through the period. Nigel goes around that high pressure centered between Bermuda and the Azores. Of course, we've got that deepening trough. As Nigel moves north, we're increasing heights east and ahead of it. So therefore, it deepens the trough over the UK and Ireland here. Then as we continue to play through the feature, notice here how Nigel gets whipped in, deepens the trough over the North Atlantic, if you notice, and then watching this area of high pressure between the Azores and Iberia lifting north because of the congregation of heights coming down to the west of the British Isles and Ireland here. But it doesn't look as if high pressure is wanting to hold on. Notice here that there's a little bit of a shift in the model output here, indicating that heights come back down towards the very end of the month. But then as we play through, it looks as if we may eventually start to lose low pressure and replace it with high pressure. But yeah, it's interesting how the models have backed away from that high pressure dominance here towards the end of the month. So I've run out of time. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you.